Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Emily Sophia, here with a brand new show to review for you guys, at least new to me. And we are going to be looking into today the British crime drama Broadchurch. So, normally this is the part where I say spoiler alert before diving into this, as I will bear all in this review, but not today. This is actually going to be a spoiler-free review, and I will explain why I'm doing it this way. So the reason why I want to do a spoiler-free analysis of the first series of Broadchurch is because I don't know who among you in my traditional viewership have actually seen the show. So I want to be able to freely introduce you guys to it and then also express my emotional reactions to the show and the reasons why I think it is so groundbreaking and worth your time without delving into the spoilery plot details. Okay, so that's why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it today. Hopefully the universe will remain intact. If that is not the case, I apologize for cutting all of our lives so tragically short, but I'm going to go forth with the belief that we can just do this thing, okay? So, Broadchurch, for those of you guys who have actually seen the first series, you're more than welcome to post spoilers in the comments, but preface with a spoiler alert. And also for those of you who have been watching Broadchurch in the UK and have seen the beginning of the second series, please refrain from posting those spoilers if you can, or at least preface them accordingly so that way I know not to read them. Because I, being stateside here in the United States, I don't get to at least legally see Broadchurch until March 4th. I cry many tears at BBC America's choices, but things are the way they are, and they are beyond my power to change, I suppose. So I've only seen the first series, and I just watched the series finale yesterday. And for those of you American viewers, when I say series, I mean seasons, so it's not just a self-contained mini-series. Although the show designer and creator Chris Chibnall, I guess, or Chibnall, I apologize if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. I might choose either of the pronunciations, but I guess that he wrote and designed the show such that in case it didn't receive good ratings, it was kind of, the first series was self-contained, which I think is a really fabulous idea. Especially, you know, there's such a plethora of crime dramas in the TV universe that you never know what's going to hit or sink. And in the case of Broadchurch, I think that this show was universally praised, and I had it recommended to me by a couple really good friends of mine whose tastes in television I really do respect. And I'm very picky with my crime dramas because so many of them are so ridiculously formulaic, okay? So that is something that I have struggled with quite a bit with your classic crime shows. It's just the fact that, okay, here's a killer. We're gonna find the killer. Oh no, everybody's kind of losing their minds, and then finally we find the guy, and justice and emotions, whatever. So it's this constant, like, you see shows like Criminal Minds, which I know this is really not a good example because I would not say that it belongs in the Criterion collection of fabulous crime shows. But again, you're introduced to a killer. You have a team of people who you expect to catch the killer, and everybody's kind of got their own little niche and approach to doing that, and then eventually some of them, one of them, whatever, nags the guy, and, you know, justice is done. The thing about Broadchurch that is so incredible and just gripped the crap out of me for the entire 8-episode run was the fact that as a crime show, it's not about killers, and it's not just about crime, it's about people. Fundamentally, at its core, it is about human beings. It is about communal life. And really what it comes down to is it is about the unknown and the art and the pain of discovery. People are ultimately, and at the end of the day, absolutely unknowable. Who can know the ways of the heart? And yet at the same time, there is that process of discovering that tip of the iceberg, and that's all that we get. Here is the tip, here is the surface of the water, and here is the mountain underneath, but we can never delve into that because that, ladies and gentlemen, is human nature. And what I love about Broadchurch is that idea is so fundamentally at the core of the storytelling here. So you have this incredible drama that looks at all the residents of this little small coastal town, Broadchurch. And as the detectives here in Broadchurch are trying to find the killer of a young boy, whose body is left on the beach as they explored this community and all of its inhabitants, there's this creeping sense of paranoia that grows. This creeping sense of paranoia about the fact that everyone is so intimately connected, but one of their residents did indeed commit this heinous act of murder. And I've heard too that the show was inspired kind of tone-wise by Twin Peaks, which I know is way up there as far as crime dramas go. I have not seen it yet, but it is high on my Netflix queue, and so I'm going to be getting to that as soon as I can, so I cannot really speak to the parallels between the shows, but based on what I know, it really seems like they're kind of cut from the same cloth. Now, let me first explain to you other aspects of the show that I found really beguiling and beautiful and cool, and why I'm gonna be turning up for series 2, whether I end up streaming it early or waiting along with all the other BBC America viewers. I don't know if I can wait because, yesterday watching the finale, I was crying for about like the entire hour. It was a little bit insane, and I did not expect myself to get ripped apart the way I did, and yet it happened. And just as the episode progressed, it only got more and more emotional. There was no one point where I felt myself clinging to the edge and pulling myself out of the ocean. I was lost at sea that entire time. And yeah. So anyway, so things I like. I really love the setting. The setting to me is absolutely breathtaking. And I guess that Chris Chibnall, who created the show, he grew up along the Jurassic coast of Dorset, and that is actually where the show itself is set. And they fictionalized the name to be Broadchurch. And also, fun little tidbit of information that I found on Wikipedia is the fact that, let me see if I can look this up, I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing, but so the lead investigator, the leading detective, played by David Tennant, his name is Alec Hardy, and he was named after the famous author Thomas Hardy, who wrote one of my favorite novels, Tess of the D'Urbervilles. If you ever want to read a book that makes you feel absolutely unsavably depressed, but then also really enlightened and stunned by good writing, then you should definitely read Hardy's stuff, because you get these gripping, emotional dramas set in these sweeping pastoral settings, and he does such a good job of exploring communities and then the individuals within them, and all the heartbreak that transpires as individuals go against social norms, whatever. It's amazing. Anyway, so I found that really cool. So you have the beautiful coastline, the crazy cliffs, and I myself have grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and I live here to this day. I grew up as my childhood hometown in Port Angeles, Washington, which had the far western part of the town was called the End of the World, and basically you could sit on these 100-foot or so bluffs overlooking the Strait of Juan de Fuca, which is kind of this ocean inlet that goes into the Puget Sound, kind of where Seattle is, and it splits the northernmost part of Washington from Canada and Victoria, BC. So you would sit here on this cliff, and you could just, depending on where you were, you could see for miles, and you could see the glittering little lights in Victoria, and it just gave you this sense of incredible peace, and then also that balanced by the danger of being on this cliff edge, and we see that theme kind of return to constantly throughout the show. It was just the perfect place to film this drama, and really contributed to the mood and atmosphere and tone of the drama itself. Because there really is something about small coastal towns that is incredibly intimate, and you can imagine that having this young 11-year-old boy die and by homicide in this place, it's so crazy and unfathomable, because here's this little cluster of all these families and individuals and people who know each other and do life together and have grown up together. And then you've got this vast ocean that is bordering this tight little society, this little culture. And that, to me, is just really kind of a powerful image, because the unknowable ocean and then everything you think you know with all the people that you've been with all your life. So that makes this really awesome dramatic tension that kind of pervades the entire drama. And so I think setting wise, they picked the perfect place. It was a place that Chibnall was very familiar with, and it worked for him and the production team very well. I also very much admire just in general the production of the show. It has an extremely high quality that just makes everything so gorgeous in the show. And also the production team went to unprecedented lengths to actually keep the identity of the murder a secret. And so basically I think that this is something that's done a lot in these kinds of shows, but it seemed to have proven very effective for Broadchurch. Basically, Chibnall had an idea for who he wanted the murderer to be, but then he also had other options available in case anything leaked. But they really tried to keep a tight seal on that particularly juicy mystery, which I will tell you is, I guess I won't tell you if it's resolved or not, but there is a resolution indeed that opens a whole bunch of new doors for series 2 at the same time. But you should watch it, it's great. It's definitely not the kind of ending that you see coming unless you are super perceptive and on top of it. I did not see it coming myself, and I was trying to juggle all these options. Here's what's also really cool about the way that the show was written is you have this arsenal of characters, all these different people in the community, but they're not just plot devices. The people are themselves people, and they're incredibly complex. There's not just this dark side, light side gradient. You get these very gray individuals, not gray in terms of them being really boring and flat, but gray in terms of them being very morally ambiguous. You see that with the family of the boy who was killed with his parents. You see that with his friends' parents. You've got a priest, and you've got the old lady who lives alone with her dog down in the RV park, and you've got just all these different figures. Everyone is at some point or another suspect. And then when the limelight is turned on these different people, we see how they react, how the media influences and kind of perverts all these relationships and destroys people. We see parallels between almost all of the characters. The show lends itself so well to character studies and comparisons, and the writing is very, very tight with a nice little 8-episode series as well. I've been noticing that a lot of shows do mid-season breaks and try and take on, around like 20 episodes a season, which is great in terms of, you've got more content, more stories, more character arcs, more, what have you. But at the same time, there is, the longer a season or series goes, the more opportunity there is for wasted space. And that is not the case with Broadchurch whatsoever. Everything, the drama is very tight, and there is a meaningful trajectory. And every episode, no matter how subtle the plots are, they have such a power behind them, and you really can't deny it. I think that the casting in this series was exceptional, because if you have the wrong actors that are portraying these complex and nuanced roles, then you're gonna get a really stereotypical show. Because Broadchurch itself is not, it's not like the most groundbreaking in terms of the way that it proceeds. Like, it's the whodunit mystery, It's that classic formula which is taken to just this whole new level by the writing that informs these characters and by the people that bring the characters to life. And also, I'm gonna file the awesomeness under accents because I am an American and I stand in awe of all accents that are not my own or from my continent and country. So I really enjoyed that factor, and that alone is, well, not that alone, but that is one of the factors keeping me from watching Grace Point, which is the American remake of Broadchurch. Also, interestingly, has David Tennant in it as the detective, but then instead of what is her name, Olivia, I can't think of her name, the woman, Olivia Colman. Instead of Olivia Colman, it is played by Skylar from Breaking Bad. Okay, anyway, so very, very good casting. I love to see David Tennant in this very interesting role. I've been watching him in Doctor Who recently, so seeing him really buckle down and, you know, be in this place of seriousness, he is kind of to that classic, almost noirish detective figure with the shady past, but it's not the shady past that you think it is going to be. When he does kind of later reveal in the show the baggage that he carries and why he carries what he carries. It's really, really well done. And you end up feeling for every single character, no matter, you know, even when those characters are being considered the murderer, there's this part of you that is not ready to throw them to the wolves, even when you're like, the evidence looks extremely compelling. You just can't quite go there because these characters are all sympathetic in their own ways. A lot of them have lost things. A lot of them have been ripped apart by the media, by others' perceptions of them. And then you see these pillars of the Broadchurch society get systematically knocked down by the media's handling of things, by the failure of the police to find the killer in a timely manner, and everyone getting ready to, you know, this kind of Mexican standoff style, like, you did it, you did it, you did it, that kind of thing. But yeah, the fact that, like, the actors are exceptional, and they make these characters so sympathetic, so real. And that was what blew me away in the finale episode, is that when you're figuring out the major twist, the plot that totally came out of left field, you're like, oh my gosh. And you feel the rage inside of you, but you feel the brokenness too. And so I am just like, I was dying the entire time. And then my family was like waiting on me, and we were gonna go shopping, and like I tried to come off of this episode and return to my normal life, and I can't. And yeah, that's kind of the effect that the show has on you, and for that reason alone, I highly recommend it. If you want to get wrecked, you can get wrecked on the shores of Broadchurch, okay? You will get washed up, beaten by the waves, and return to the shore with no idea who you are or where you've been and why and how. It's good. It's really, really good. So I highly encourage any of you who enjoy more than your standard fare of crime dramas to delve into this. Give it a chance. You will not be sorry. I think next I'm going to watch either Luther or The Fall. The Fall, I think, is a Netflix original, another crime drama from the UK, starring Gillian Anderson. Okay, I think y'all should know that name. She's really good. Most recently, I've seen her as Bedelia in Hannibal, and she has got style and finesse to burn to the ground. This woman is she will command your attention. I also really loved Olivia Colman in the role, because what was cool, and an element that I expected to show up in the drama was, so you've got Olivia Colman's detective character who is working for the character of David Tennant's dude. See, I'm terrible with names, so please ignore me. It's Alec Hardy and Ellie Miller, okay? There you go. I'm finally speaking English now. But I thought there was going to be this whole, like, sexual tension subplot, you know, with the guy detective, girl detective, and, you know, But it doesn't jive that way. In fact, there's a lot of tension between the characters that it does not pertain to them wanting to get it on because, well, namely, Ellie Miller is a family woman. She's got a husband and children. Whereas Alec is the loner, and so we see Ellie, even against her own desires, trying to reach out to him and make him a part of things when, well, at the beginning of the series, he took her job. So, of course, there's this professional tension. There's an ideological tension as well, because Ellie is a part of the community that Alec has entered into, and he is investigating and tells her up front, trust no one. This is not a foreign concept to those of us who know our TV and movie cliches. But the way that this is acted out, we ourselves establish our own trust in certain characters and get that brutally ripped away from us in the end. And yeah, so we see that happen with all the inhabitants of Broadchurch, and we see Alec Hardy continuously become attached to this community that he is at once so aloof from. He's this kind of not really Byronic hero character, but he certainly is set apart and he's got this pride factor, especially from his pride that was wounded in coming from a similar murder case that he was unable to solve. Again, we figure out that backstory and we get to appreciate him so much more as a character. Really ridiculously powerful stuff. Again, I just like that everyone who's in the show is meaningful. The cinematography is film quality good. I mean, it is pretty to watch. And also a lot of the tone of the show was informed by Olafur Arnalds. He is an Icelandic musician who provided an incredible original soundtrack for the show. That, once again, will tug right at your heartstrings. You will take a bow of sorrow and play them as you go. So it is just an overall engrossing experience. I cannot recommend this enough. And I really do want to maybe even possibly do an episode by episode review of the second series. And yeah, there's so many shows coming up for me. I might do a season review for Agent Carter, the new Marvel TV show. And then we've got Better Call Saul, Gotham, The Walking Dead. We're gonna be busy this 2015, ladies and gents, so thank you so much for watching my review. If there's any fabulous part of the show that I forgot to refer to, please do let me know. If you have spoilers, just preface them as such, and I will read the ones that I can read and respond to the ones that I can. So, thank you guys very, very much. I love each and every one of you, and as always, I will be back before you know it. Take care. Never knew what to rely upon, but now there's no